This is probably not surprising to anyone at this point. Let's just move on. This movie isn't a complete disaster, but this movie should have been so much better than what it was. The way Dracula was handled in Blade Trinity was just horrendous. For one, they made Dracula look like a gangster vampire. This movie is not as bad as some people say it is, but it's not great, and it's nowhere near as good as the first Joker. Joaquin Phoenix, as usual, is fantastic as Arthur Fleck / Joker. He gives it his all. Lady Gaga is terrific as Harley Quinn. These two actors have great chemistry, and their singing is really good. The movie is flawlessly shot, the cinematography is outstanding, the music is great. Now, as for flaws with this movie, I will say this. There are certain characters who feel like they come and go. The movie is a little too long. I felt the length sometimes. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but the ending I feel could have been a little bit better. Joker Folie Deux is not a terrible film. It's not one of the worst films of the year, but it's not as great as it could have been. While Kingsman: The Golden Circle isn't as good as the first one, I still enjoy it. Birds of Prey isn't a masterpiece, but it's still entertaining, and Margot Robbie's performance carries the movie. Deadpool 2 is a fun movie. It's not as good as the first one in my opinion, but I still really enjoyed it. I absolutely love this film, and this film should not get overlooked. This film should get more recognition for how good it is. Aaron Taylor Johnson does a good job in the lead role. Chloe Grace Moretz steals the show as Hit Girl. She is awesome. Nicolas Cage is super entertaining as Big Daddy, and he relishes this role. Red Mist was also a very entertaining presence. Mark Strong does a good job as the villain. There's a lot of fun action scenes, and the movie is hilarious throughout. The movie is also paced very well. There was never one dull moment. Overall, I absolutely love this film, and this is easily the best comic book movie from the year 2010. Love Blade. Wesley Snipes is fantastic as Blade, and he's one of the best superhero casting choices. Deacon Frost is kind of a cheesy villain, but you can tell Steven Dorff is having fun in the role. The action scenes are a lot of fun, especially with that opening scene with Blade taking on all the vampires in the nightclub. I also really like the soundtrack. Blade 2 is my favorite of the Blade trilogy. Wesley Snipes is really good as Blade. Ron Perlman was good in a supporting role. The villain in this movie was better than in the first Blade. The fight scenes were very well done. Blade 2 is one of the better comic book movies we have. Red is a movie that if you have not watched it, I strongly recommend that you check it out because this film is an underrated gem and it's one of my favorite comic book movies. Karl Urban is fantastic in this movie, and I easily think this is his best performance. In terms of superhero casting choices, I would actually say he's very overlooked. Olivia Thirby does a really good job as Judge Dredd's partner, and she works well with Karl Urban. Lena Headey is terrific as the villain. The movie is incredibly well shot. The action scenes are super well done. They're very intense. There's no stupid shaky cam, and you can tell what's happening. Kingsman: The Secret Service is Matthew Vaughn's best movie. Taron Egerton is fantastic as Eggsy. Colin Firth gives an excellent performance. Mark Strong and Sophie Cookson do well in their roles. Samuel L. Jackson knocked it out of the park as the villain. The action scenes are a ton of fun. They're very well filmed and you can see what's happening. Another thing I love about this movie is how self-aware it is. This movie perfectly balances goofy over-the-top stuff with a serious tone. Suicide Squad is an absolute blast. This movie is a huge improvement over the first one. The characters were all lovable and King Shark was the standout. Watchmen is a great superhero movie and extremely underrated. 300 is one of my favorite films of all time. Gerard Butler does a fantastic job as Leonidas. Lena Headey does well as Leonidas' wife. Rodrigo Santoro does an excellent job as Xerxes. The movie is very well directed by Zack Snyder and very well shot. The battle scenes are also very entertaining and very intense. Overall, I absolutely love 300, and this is one of the best films from the year 2007. Zack Snyder's Justice League is my favorite film in the DCEU. This is a movie that, despite being 4 hours long, didn't bore me at all. The characters were better developed in this version, and a lot of the humor that was really forced in the 2017 Justice League was removed. And let's not forget, the scene where Henry Cavill as Superman shows up in his black suit was absolutely epic. This movie is far better than the Joss Whedon cut, and that is why it is my #1 favorite DCEU movie. Joker is phenomenal, and this is easily the best film from the year 2019. Joaquin Phoenix is absolutely outstanding in this movie. This is by far the best performance of his entire career. He does a flawless job making you feel for Arthur while also making you feel uncomfortable, and I also love his Joker laugh in the movie. Joaquin Phoenix is the second best Joker put on the big screen behind Heath Ledger, and he definitely deserved his Oscar. Robert De Niro is not in it much, but he does a really good job for the screen time he has. The movie is flawlessly shot. The cinematography is outstanding. I also love the musical scores. Deadpool is an absolute blast from start to finish. There was never one dull moment, and I can't think of one flaw with this movie. Deadpool and Wolverine is my new favorite film of the year. Ryan Reynolds does a fantastic job as Deadpool, and this is his best performance as the character. Hugh Jackman is once again amazing as Wolverine, and it is so good to see him back in this role. And the chemistry between him and Ryan Reynolds was flawless. The action scenes are incredible. They're very entertaining and a lot of fun. The movie is also very funny. I was laughing consistently. Without getting into any spoilers, there are some surprise cameos, and the surprise cameos were great. Logan is definitely a top-tier superhero movie. Logan isn't just the best film out of the solo Wolverine movies, it's the best film in the X-Men franchise by far, because this movie hit me on an emotional level and was more focused on telling a good, personal, dramatic story while having really exciting action scenes. The movie is also a perfect ending to Wolverine's story, and this is far superior to any of the other X-Men movies. The action scenes are very intense and gritty, the drama and the emotion felt earned, and of course, Hugh Jackman is the best he has ever been as Wolverine.